Beloved Madridistas, welcome back. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Madrid. Listen, it's obviously, kind of quiet after those two huge matches. And we don't play until Friday against our Sociedad. But I thought it'd be kind of a cool time to just go over some of the comments. I really enjoy the comments that you guys make. It's getting harder and harder to keep up with everything as the channel grows. But I want to, I think it'd be a good time to just kind of address some of the comments and questions and some of the things you guys mentioned, which is really, really entertaining. So we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the ratings, some of the ones you guys kind of disagreed with, which fairly. We'll talk about the whole nation-state club issue, which has triggered a few of you out there. And then we'll talk about the culture issue again, about Real Madrid, and that kind of emotional spiel I gave you about sort of what the club means to me, etc. And then we'll talk about Barca. Unfortunately we have to mention them again, but we'll talk about some of your comments, and then I'll just give you just a quick couple of thoughts ahead of the Real Sociedad match. But thanks for joining me once again. Let's get started. Madridistas, welcome back. Okay, let's talk about some of the issues that you guys raised in the comment section, and we'll start with the player ratings, which is always kind of spicy because, listen, everybody has their opinion. Obviously, when I give the ratings, it's just my personal opinion, but my opinion doesn't outrank any of yours. So it is very subjective by nature. But one of the ones that you guys really criticize is when I gave Vini a 6. After the Barca match, and a few of you came back and said, what on earth does a guy have to do to get a 7? I mean, he did score a goal, the penalty, and there was an assist, and I think you guys make a really, really fair point. So I mean, we're going to adjust Vini from a 6 to a 7 by popular demand, but I think you guys make a very fair point. I mean, you have to understand that I'm sort of very heavily influenced by, I've told you guys before, the crowd in Madrid is just so critical. I mean, you get a lot of these, old grumpy men that have been sort of watching Real Madrid for 60 years, and they've seen the best players in the world, and, they're so hypercritical. And I mean, I think it's one of the reasons that our standard of excellence is so high, is that we have such a demanding culture. So I think sometimes we can get a little bit overboard, and, the other day in the first half, some of the people around me where I sit, and it's usually always the same people, were getting very frustrated that, when we finally kind of would recover the ball, that, we'd launch in a counterattack, and then in the last minute, Vini would kind of make a bad decision or lose the ball. And there was a lot of kind of impatience going around me, and it probably influenced me a bit. I mean, I did think he was a little bit tired and a little bit imprecise offensively, but he did work really, really hard, and obviously made a huge contribution to the victory. So, I mean, I'm influenced a little bit by some of that noise. I remember when my kids were younger, there was one, older gentleman a couple of rows in front of us who was just hilarious. He was just spent the entire game just cussing at our own players. I mean, if Raul, this was a long time ago when my kids were little, Raul would miss a couple of balls. Oh my God. I mean, this guy would just go bananas. And so, I mean, there are some very interesting characters in the Bernabeu, and some of that noise influences me, I think. But okay, we're going to upgrade Vini to a 7. You're right. Sorry about that, guys. And then another thing I need to correct, Lucas Vázquez, I gave him a 9, and I was thinking, well, what the hell does somebody have to do to get a 10? I mean, you're a right back. You're not even a starting right back, and you score a really, really good goal because that ball came in with a lot of speed. It was very difficult to connect that shot. So he scores a fantastic goal. He provokes a penalty, showing beautiful technique and dribbling that you don't always expect from a right back, and an assist. So I'm thinking to myself, what the hell does a guy have to do to get a 10 around here? So we're going to upgrade Lucas Vázquez from a 9 to a 10. And I think, your feedback is really, really important. So I really appreciate it. Okay, another thing that I want to mention that was, some people in the comment section, when I talked about the nation state issue, and this was the post-match analysis of the Man City match, and there's a segment towards the end where, I mentioned that I think these nation state-owned clubs are just not good for football. And I got some really kind of vitriolic responses from some people out there. I don't think they're subscribers. I think they're, visitors to the channel, and, probably Man City supporters, I would imagine. But they really, really kind of came after me. And they kind of, made it sound like I had an issue with Abu Dhabi or Qatar. And I want to clarify this because it's a big deal. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. I'm gonna say it one more time. I lived and worked in Abu Dhabi for 3 years. I worked for the government of Abu Dhabi. Okay, I worked at a place called the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, and I had an incredibly positive experience in the Emirates. I absolutely love the Emirates. I mean, I love the people. The people are so hospitable. They're so generous. I mean, I have such a warm spot in my heart for the Emirates and Abu Dhabi specifically. I mean, I still have friends there, and I still travel there, periodically, and I absolutely love Abu Dhabi. I mean, there's nothing could be. I have absolutely no animosity, again, either Abu Dhabi or Qatar. The issue that I'm trying to make, and I'm going to explain it one more time. I don't know why people are having trouble understanding this. My issue is with financial fair play rules and with transparency. So the way that clubs are allowed to spend money on players is as a percentage of their revenue, okay? Because you want there to be some sort of a level playing field, and you don't want clubs to go bankrupt. So they try to limit how much you can spend on players, and that's based on revenues. Now, if you are a very wealthy owner, which is the case with Man City and the case with PSG, you have all the money in the world to spend on any player you want. You can buy any player you want, but what limits you is your revenues, because maybe you're not a global brand. Because when Abu Dhabi bought Man City, 12, 13 years ago, whenever it was, Man City was not a very big brand. I mean, they were not, this is not offensive. I'm not offending anybody by saying this. Man City was just not a massive global club. I mean, they're not Real Madrid, they're not Barça, they're not Man United, they're not Liverpool. And so their revenue line was, considerably lower than really big global clubs. And this is where I have an issue, that in order to boost that revenue line, these clubs enter into contracts that are, I think, dubious, questionable. I mean, obviously the FA has issues with it because, that they're filing all these kind of allegations against the club. So I'm not making this up, but, there is reason to suspect that a lot of these deals are inflating the revenue line and therefore allowing the clubs to spend more money than they should. And that is my objection. I mean, I don't really care who owns these clubs. I don't care who owns them. And I have no beef at all with Abu Dhabi. On the contrary, I love Abu Dhabi, and I think Qatar was charming, the 2-3 times I've been there. But my issue is not with ownership. It is with transparency and financial fair play. I just think that those rules should be enforced across the board. So you guys that are sort of freaking out that I said this, I'm sorry. I mean, and I know that, Sheikh Mansour is doing wonderful things in Manchester, and one of you wrote extensively about all the wonderful things he's doing to enhance the city and, kind of charitable things. And I think that's wonderful. But, just because you're very generous and you do a lot of wonderful things doesn't mean that you should be allowed to violate financial fair play rules as a club, okay? I don't think there's anything controversial about this, but I wanted to clarify that again, okay? All right. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, which you guys, a couple of you guys kind of teased me about, is, I had a very emotional intro after that Man City match, and, talking about sort of the values of Real Madrid and what it means as a club. And, it is deeply emotional, and I kind of meant every word I said, but a couple of you guys kind of teased me about it. But I think it makes a lot of sense because, what I'm trying to say is the following. To say that Real Madrid is just a football club is to say that, was Michael Jordan just a basketball player? Was Michael Jordan just a basketball player? No. Okay, Michael Jordan was the absolute epitome of competitiveness, of excellence. He took competitiveness to an absolutely crazy level. And you've had a few players in other sports that I think embody this. I mean, Kobe Bryant, would you say that Kobe was just a basketball player? I mean, Kobe was a mentality. He was a state of mind. I mean, he was a philosophy of how to live your life. And it's just so much more than just a basketball player. I'll give you another example. David Goggins, okay? For those of you who don't know who this guy is, I mean, I really strongly recommend you read this book. I mean, I'm not into sort of military stuff, but I mean, to say that David Goggins was just a soldier or just a Navy SEAL is ridiculous. I mean, David Goggins is an experiment into what human beings are capable of if they really put their mind to something. He is all about what human beings can achieve to the extreme. And I mean, I really invite you guys to read this book, which is amazing. But that's what I mean when I'm talking about Real Madrid being more than a club. It is much more than a club. It is a philosophy of sort of pursuing excellence to a degree that is just, I think, unseen anywhere else in the world of sports. So, you know, I want to clarify that, and I think it makes a hell of a lot of sense. Now, another couple of things I want to mention. Oh, by the way, that musical intro with the beautiful goals at the beginning, that is me on the guitar with that beautiful cherry red Gibson Les Paul. That was me. I mean, there are copyright issues when you use any kind of music on YouTube, so I thought I might as well make a tune myself. So I'll just answer that one very quickly. And then finally, the Barça issue. I mean, there were a couple of, Barça people that came onto the channel and sort of giving me a lot of crap about what I was saying about Barça. But I mean, I'm sorry, this is true. I mean, since I put out that video, the last video, Laporta has come out and did this dramatic press conference saying that they are going to appeal the result of the Clásico because of the play where they think the ball went in. I mean, Barça, okay, one of the reasons that La Liga doesn't have goal line technology is because Barça was one of the clubs that voted against it. Okay, we wanted it, Barça didn't want it. And now you're complaining that there's no goal line technology. Well, you're the one that didn't. I mean, nothing this club does makes any sense. I mean, the level of hypocrisy is beyond belief. So the club that paid refs for 18 years and had the best refereeing statistics in the world of football for years, okay? And please watch this video I did going over all the numbers. And this is data-based, okay? For that club to complain about referees, right? A club that, if you're an Arsenal supporter, do you remember the Van Persie thing? I mean, do you remember that? I mean, it's incredible. Okay, do you remember the Stamford Bridge match? I think one of the most infamous robberies in the history of European football. There were 6 penalties in that match, 3 of which were, I mean, the most glaring penalties you've ever seen because, they were sponsored by UNICEF and there was a relationship between UNICEF and UEFA. And I mean, I had friends at the time, Chelsea supporters, who were livid. So the club that literally has been involved in the sketchiest referee scandals in the world now have the audacity to come out and say that they want to. Are we going to replay all those games? Are we going to replay the Chelsea semifinal? Are we going to replay the Arsenal match with Inter or all the other matches in La Liga and the Clásicos where we were absolutely robbed? Are we going to replay all of those? So I'm sorry. This is just, it's pathetic, and I hate to have to mention it. So, if you Barça people want to come onto the channel and try to give me crap, I mean, go ahead. But the truth is the truth. So, I'm really sorry. Okay, let's move on to the Real Sociedad match coming up on Friday. Now, because our match against Bayern Munich is Tuesday, Real Madrid requested that the game be moved up to Friday. This is something that is, happens all the time. I mean, and the Liga, usually accommodates, Spanish clubs in this situation. So we'll get that extra day of rest. But in terms of, the only thing I would say, I mean, there's not a lot to say about this match because the Liga is pretty much a done deal. And we have a very, very important match on Tuesday. So I would rest absolutely everybody. I mean, I'm not kidding. We need to rest as many players as we can. For starters, I want to see Arda Güler. Okay, I'm tired of waiting to see this kid. There is no excuse in the world for Arda Güler to not play the full 90 minutes this time. I want to see him. I want to see Militao. Okay, like we know he's medically ready, but we need to get him match ready, and I think he needs minutes. So I want to see Arda. I want to see Militao. And then for the rest of the squad, I want to see as many players resting as possible. I want Brahim to play. I want Joselu to play. I want Ceballos out there. I want to rest Fede. I want to rest Rudiger. I want to rest, Kroos. I think, Camavinga, Tchouaméni. I mean, seriously. I mean, if you have to play with a B team, play with a B team. But, this is no time to mess around. So, listen, not that much more to say about that Real Sociedad match. I'll give you guys some comments, obviously, on Saturday following that match. But anyway, I just thought I'd address some of these issues. Again, thanks for joining. The channel keeps growing, and I really love your comments and everything else. So thanks for being with me, being part of the family. And, as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. And as always and forever, a la Madrid.